License to Kill is a 1989 action thriller film and the 16th film in the James Bond series produced by Eon Productions, and the second and final film to star Timothy Dalton as the MI6 agent James Bond. It sees Bond suspended from MI6 as he pursues the drug lord Franz Sanchez, who has ordered the attack against Bond's CIA friend Felix Leiter and the murder of Felix's wife after their wedding. License to Kill was the fifth and final Bond film directed by John Glenn, and the last to feature Robert Brown as M and Caroline Bliss as Miss Moneypenny. It was also the last to feature the work of screenwriter Richard Maybaum and the title designer Maurice Binder and the producer Albert R. Broccoli, all of whom died in the following years. License to Kill was the first Bond film to not use the title of an Ian Fleming story. Originally titled License Revoked, the name was changed during post-production due to American test audiences associating the term with the driver's license. Although its plot is largely original, it contains elements of Fleming novel Live and Let Die and the short story The Hildebrand Rarity, interwoven with sabotage premise influenced by Akira Kurosawa's film Yojimma. For budget reasons, License to Kill became the first Bond film shot entirely outside of the United Kingdom. Principal photography took place on location in Mexico and the US, while interiors were filmed at East Studios Churubusco instead of Pinewood Studios. The film earned over $156 million worldwide and received generally positive reviews with praise for its stunts, but attracted criticism for its darker tone, which carried into Dalton's portrayal of Bond. The cast includes Timothy Dalton as James Bond 007, an MI6 agent who resigns to take revenge on drug lord Franz Sanchez. Carrie Lau as Pam Bouvier, an ex-army pilot and DEA informant. Robert Davi as Franz Sanchez, the most powerful drug lord in Latin America, mentioned as having been wanted by the DEA for years. Delicio Santo as Lupe Lamora, Sanchez's girlfriend who has romantic feelings for Bond. Anthony Zerbe as Milton Crest, Sanchez's henchman who operates the Wavecrest Marine Research and whom Bond sets up to turn Sanchez against him. Everett McGill as Edward Kilfeller, a corrupt DEA agent who frees Sanchez from custody. Desmond Llewellyn as Q, Bond's ally, who supplies Bond with various gadgets and helps him in the field. Robert Brown as M, the head of MI6, and Bond's superior, who revokes Bond's 00 license. Benicio del Toro as Dario, Sanchez's personal henchman. David Hedison as Felix Leiter, a former CIA agent, now with the DEA and a close friend of James Bond. And Priscilla Barnes as Delia Churchill, Felix Leiter's fiancée, then bride. After Carrie Lau was chosen to play Pam Bouvier, she watched many of the films in the series for inspiration. Lau had described becoming Bond girl as a huge shoes to fill, as she did not see herself as a glamour girl, even coming to audition in jeans and a leather jacket. While Lau wore a wig for the scene set in the United States, a scene where Bouvier is given more money and told by Bond to go and buy some new clothes, and going off to do so also has her hair cut, was added so that Lau's own short hairstyle could be used. Robert Davi was cast following a suggestion by Broccoli's daughter Tina, who had seen Davi in the television film Terrorist on Trial, the United States vs. Salim Majibi. To portray Sanchez, Davi researched the Colombian drug cartels and how to do a Colombian accent, and since he was method acting, he would stay in character off set. After Davi read Casino Royale for preparation, he decided to turn Sanchez into a mirror image of James Bond, based on Ian Fleming's descriptions of Le Chevre. The actor also learned scuba diving for the scene where Sanchez is rescued from a sunken armored car. Davi later helped with casting of Sanchez's mistress, Lupe Lamora, by playing Bond in the audition. Delicia Soto was picked from 12 candidates because Davi said he would kill for her. David Hedison returned to play Felix Leiter 16 years after playing the character in Live and Let Die. Hedison did not expect to return for the role, saying, "I was sure that Live and Let Die would be my first and my last," and Glenn was reluctant to cast a 61-year-old actor since the role included a scene of parachuting. Up-and-coming actor Benicio del Toro was chosen to play Sanchez's henchman, Dario, for being a laid-back while menacing in a quirky sort of way, according to Glenn. Wayne Newton got the role of Professor Joe Butcher after sending a letter to the producers expressing interest in a cameo because he always wanted to be in a Bond film. President of Ishmas was played by Pedro Almodarez Jr., the son of Pedro Almodarez, who played Ali Karim Bey in From Russia with Love. The film was originally intended to be shot in China, but the 1987 film The Last Emperor had removed some of the novelty of filming in China. The writers had suggested a chase sequence along the Great Wall, as well as a fight scene among the Terracotta Army. Producer Michael G. Wilson had also written 2 plot outlines about a drug lord in the Golden Triangle before the plans fell through out of Broccoli's concerns that the Chinese government would censor the script. Eventually it was decided that the film would be set in Mexico and the Caribbean. For location, Wilson created the Republic of Ishmas, a banana republic based on Panama, with a pockmarked Sanchez, bearing similarities to General Manuel Noriega. The parallels between the two figures were based on Noriega's political use of drug trafficking and money laundering to provide revenues for Panama. Robert Davies suggested the line "loyalty is more important than money," which he felt was fitting to the character of Franz Sanchez, whose actions were noticed by Davy to be concerned with betrayal and retaliation. United Artists Press kits refer to the film's background to being as torn straight from the headlines of today's newspapers, and the backdrop, Panama, was connected to the Medellin cartel in Colombia and the corruption of government officials in Mexico, thrown in for good measure. This use of the cocaine smuggling backdrop put License to Kill alongside other cinema blockbusters, such as 1987's Lethal Weapon, Beverly Hills Cop 2, and RoboCop, and Bond was seen to be poaching on their turf with the drug-related revenge story. Initially, Vic Flick, who had played lead guitar on Monty Norman's original 007 theme, and Eric Clapton were asked to write and perform the theme song for License to Kill, and they produced the theme to match Dalton's gritty performance, but the producers turned it down, and instead Gladys Knight's song and performance was chosen. The song was based on the horn line from Goldfinger, seen as a homage to the film of the same name, which required royalty payments to the original writers. The song gave Knight her first British top 10 hit since 1977. The end credits feature the top 10 R&B hit If You Ask Me To, sung by Patti LaBelle. John Barry was originally intended to score, but was not available at the time due to throat surgery after suffering a rupture of his esophagus in 1988, and it was considered unsafe for him to fly from his home in New York to London to complete the score. The soundtrack score was instead composed and conducted by Michael Kamen, who was known for scoring many action films at the time, such as Lethal Weapon and Die Hard. Now, License to Kill has been considered one of the more gritty and darker entries in the franchise. Now, for me, Timothy Dalton delivers a much more serious and brooding portrayal of James Bond in this one. He brings a sense of determination and intensity to the character, showing a much more human and vulnerable side to Bond. This film offers a good balance of action and thrills. The film features exhilarating chase sequences, intense shootouts, and explosive set pieces, all what you would expect in a normal James Bond film. Though the film's darker tone adds a gritty realism to the action, making it stand out from some of the more light-hearted Bond films. Robert Davi plays Franz Sanchez as a compelling and menacing villain. He exudes a sense of danger and unpredictability, making him a formidable adversary for Bond. Sanchez's drug empire adds a contemporary and relevant aspect to the story, addressing the issue of drug trafficking and consequences that was really prevalent at the time. I found this film to be well-paced with tight editing. It keeps the story moving at a nice pace. The cinematography captures the exotic locations, particularly the scenes set in the fictional Republic of Esmus, adding a visual flair to the film. I really enjoyed the film's soundtrack here, and Michael Kamen incorporates the elements of the iconic Bond theme while infusing with the more contemporary sound of the time of the 80s. I also particularly love the theme tune here, License to Kill from Gladys Knight. It's one of my absolute favourites, and even the addition of If You Ask Me To by Patti LaBelle is a nice feature at the end of the film. License to Kill offers a darker and more grounded take on the James Bond character. It showcases Timothy Dalton's portrayal as Bond as a much more serious and determined agent. The film also delivers a really thrilling story, engaging action sequences, and a very compelling villain. While for a lot of people they didn't like this darker take on the Bond character, I really enjoyed this film, and I really felt that Timothy Dalton deserved much more of a chance to play the James Bond character, as I really liked his intensity and driven determination that he brought to this iconic character. I felt his time in the role was cut far too soon. I think it would have been fascinating to see Timothy Dalton at least play the character one more time, and if you will, complete the trilogy arc, as it were. In saying that, though, for various reasons, Bond wouldn't be seen on screen until 1995 again. And so Timothy Dalton only got to play the character twice in two very good and well-made movies that I feel are very much underrated. And for me, in many ways, these films were the precursors to Daniel Craig's take later on the character. Gritty, thrilling, and engaging, License to Kill gets a 9 out of 10.